Evan Calder was the kind of employee no one noticed. Quiet, precise, and nearly invisible inside the towering chaos of Virexon Corporation. But when a suspicious pattern of promotions linked to the CEO's inner circle caught his eye, Evan uncovered a buried legal weapon. Clause 7, a forgotten rule powerful enough to expose corruption at the highest level. What began as a quiet suspicion spiraled into a high-stakes chase across tunnels, rooftops, and abandoned districts, revealing a global conspiracy designed to destroy him. Now hunted, betrayed, and armed with the truth, Evan must risk everything to bring down an empire built on lies before it destroys him first. Virexon Corp, a powerhouse in the global tech sector, finds itself under internal scrutiny after unexpected movements in its leadership structure. At the center of this quiet storm is Evan Calder, an unassuming data analyst whose presence is so subtle that many employees admit they often forget he's in the room at all. Calder has long been known for his silence, precision, and ability to blend into the background. Because he avoids office politics and keeps interactions minimal, executives have routinely overlooked him, assuming he plays no role beyond routine data processing. Yet this very invisibility has granted him a vantage point few in the company possess. According to sources, Calder recently noticed a series of unusual promotions occurring within departments that historically required rigorous vetting. Several individuals with modest performance metrics were suddenly elevated to influential roles, raising eyebrows among observant employees, Calder most of all. What began as a casual observation quickly evolved into a pattern too deliberate to dismiss. Calder reportedly cross-checked internal performance logs, HR approvals, and time-stamped memos. The data not only confirmed his suspicions but revealed inconsistencies that suggested the promotions were neither organic nor merit-based. Despite his quiet nature, Calder's discovery has sparked silent tension across office floors. Departments whisper about strange movements upstairs, unsure whether the shifts signal strategic restructuring or something far less transparent. Calder, meanwhile, continues to gather his findings discreetly, aware that even a whisper in the wrong ear could put him at risk. For now, Virexon Corp's leadership maintains an outward appearance of business as usual. But those familiar with Calder's reputation for accuracy say one thing clearly. If he believes something is wrong, it usually is. And this time, the stakes may be higher than anyone realizes. Tension inside Virexon Corp escalated overnight as new information emerged following the earlier discovery made by analyst Evan Calder, whose quiet investigation into suspicious promotion patterns has begun uncovering deeper irregularities. What initially appeared to be isolated inconsistencies now points toward a coordinated effort influencing leadership appointments across multiple departments. Calder's findings have quietly circulated among a handful of trusted co-workers, sparking a wave of anxiety. Employees report a strange atmosphere on several office floors, as managers seem unusually guarded and HR representatives have been observed holding closed-door meetings at unusual hours. The corporation's internal networks, normally calm, show an uptick in access restrictions and document reclassification. What truly intensified the situation was Calder's newest discovery. Several of the fast-track promotions share a direct connection to the CEO's extended family, a fact previously unacknowledged in corporate disclosures. Though no official statement has been released, early data strongly suggests these promotions bypassed normal evaluation protocols entirely. Sources close to the situation say Calder unearthed an internal directive that rerouted promotion approvals through a rarely used administrative chain, one that requires sign-off from a senior executive known for unquestioned loyalty to the CEO. This unusual pathway effectively circumvented the checks and balances typically enforced by the company's governance board. Employees who have seen fragments of Calder's findings describe a sense of disbelief. Many had long suspected favoritism within certain departments, but few imagined the scale of influence potentially reaching the company's highest office. Some staff members now worry the organization's long-standing merit-based image may be compromised. Adding to the uncertainty, several promoted individuals have begun to distance themselves from their teams, fueling speculation that they may have been briefed about the growing concerns. Their sudden silence, coupled with strategic changes in office seating and access cards, has only heightened suspicion. One senior manager, speaking on condition of anonymity, stated that someone high up is definitely nervous, noting that the executive suites have been unusually active after hours. Security personnel have also been repositioned near certain elevators, an uncommon sight in the normally free-flowing headquarters. Meanwhile, Calder continues to operate from the shadows. Despite the increasing pressure, he maintains his careful routines, entering the building early, leaving late, and keeping his investigation entirely digital. His silent nature, once seen as unremarkable, now acts as his greatest shield. However, the situation took a dramatic turn when Calder located a missing piece of the puzzle. An internal memo with timestamps that contradict the official promotion timeline. The document appears to show approvals signed before evaluation reviews were even completed, pointing to deliberate backdating. This revelation suggests the possibility of coordinated manipulation rather than accidental oversight, and it places Calder dangerously close to exposing something far bigger than he initially intended. As rumors swirl and the executive floors tighten their defenses, one thing is clear. The quiet employee who once blended into the background is now uncovering secrets that could shake Virexon Corp to its core. The atmosphere in Virexon Corp has shifted from subtle tension to undeniable unease as analyst Evan Calder's quiet investigation reaches a startling new phase. Following the discovery of backdated promotion approvals and links to the CEO's inner circle, Calder has now uncovered a long-forgotten legal mechanism buried deep in the company's regulatory framework, Clause 7. Calder reportedly found the clause while sifting through archived governance manuals stored in an abandoned server partition rarely accessed by modern staff. The obscure provision, untouched for nearly a decade, outlines a powerful whistleblower protection protocol granting complete anonymity and forcing the board to launch an immediate investigation if credible evidence of executive misconduct is submitted. The revelation stunned the small circle of co-workers aware of Calder's findings. Many employees had never heard of Clause 7, and some assumed the company had dissolved such protections years ago amid corporate restructuring efforts. The discovery that it still exists, and remains legally enforceable, sent murmurs racing across the office. Once Calder realized the potential of what he had uncovered, his investigation intensified. He began cross-referencing approvals, server logs, and HR workflows with the requirements outlined in Clause 7. The more he compared, the more glaring the violations appeared. Several recent promotions not only bypassed protocol but directly breached governance standards. Meanwhile, sources report increased surveillance within the executive wing. IT administrators have been instructed to audit network activity with unusual urgency, sparking internal rumors that leadership is frantically searching for a leak. One employee described the executive floor as a pressure cooker ready to burst. At the same time, subtle signs suggest the CEO's office is becoming aware that someone has uncovered the irregularities. Two department heads reportedly received unexpected calls to review their email histories, while a senior HR official abruptly canceled a scheduled town hall. These actions have only fueled fears that a quiet hunt is underway. Calder, however, has stayed several steps ahead. Using the company's own documentation vaults and outdated email archives, he has begun constructing a series of timelines illustrating exactly how the nepotistic promotions were executed. Each timeline strengthens the case for Clause 7 activation and heightens the risk of being discovered. What makes the situation more dramatic is Calder's silent determination. Despite knowing he could be targeted, he continues to gather evidence with unwavering precision. Those who have spoken to him privately describe him as calm, focused, and aware of what invoking Clause 7 could trigger inside Virexon Corp. But perhaps the most shocking development came late last night, when Calder located a sealed digital attachment mislabeled as its training module. Inside it was an earlier version of the promotion policy, one clearly altered without board authorization. This file appears to be the missing link proving deliberate intent, not administrative error. Virexon Corp has entered its most volatile phase yet as analyst Evan Calder, operating deep beneath the radar, prepares a high-risk digital mechanism designed to protect his investigation and expose wrongdoing if anything happens to him. This system, described by one insider as a corporate tripwire, marks a decisive new escalation in the quiet war unfolding inside the company. Calder began constructing the trap after discovering restricted message chains indicating that upper-level executives feared Clause 7 might still be active. Realizing the danger he faced, he built a network of encrypted folders linked to automated release triggers. If his access is revoked, if his credentials are altered, or if he is terminated, the files will instantly distribute to the board, third-party auditors, and, most critically, external regulators. Sources say the sheer sophistication of Calder's setup has stunned even tech-savvy employees who've learned fragments of what he's doing. The automation leverages Virexon's outdated backup architecture, meaning the very systems leadership ignored for years have become Calder's greatest weapons. He used their negligence against them, one employee remarked. But as Calder intensified his covert preparations, the CEO's office began tightening surveillance. Security teams were instructed to monitor unusual data patterns, and IT specialists quietly initiated a server-wide access purge, an operation that has thrown department workflows into chaos. Staffers describe the atmosphere as tense, paranoid, and on the edge of snapping. The CEO, whose name has yet to surface publicly in connection with the promotion irregularities, has reportedly ordered internal audits and emergency compliance reviews. While presented as routine procedures, these initiatives are widely believed to be part of a targeted effort to find the source of the leaks. Several managers have confirmed being questioned abruptly about document access and communication logs. Calder's ability to remain undetected in this heightened environment has shocked many who know him. Previously dismissed as invisible or unimportant, he now uses that invisibility as a strategic advantage. Walking past executives unnoticed, quietly occupying empty conference rooms, and analyzing data late into the night as entire departments scramble for answers. What makes this chapter of the unfolding drama more explosive is that some executives now suspect an imminent whistleblower action. A senior operations chief was overheard stating, "Someone is preparing for war," prompting speculation that the CEO is growing increasingly fearful of a Clause 7 activation. This fear has triggered more aggressive measures intended to corral internal data flows. Meanwhile, Calder's trap is nearly complete. He has linked the shadow files, the forbidden timeline discrepancies, the unauthorized policy alterations, and the financial anomalies into a single, chronological packet. Once triggered, the evidence would be impossible to retract or discredit. The board would have no choice but to intervene. However, last night brought a chilling development. System logs show a failed attempt to access one of the encrypted directories Calder secured. Though the attempt was blocked, the implication is clear. Someone with high authority is actively hunting for the source of the investigation. And they are getting closer. Calder is now racing against time. With the digital trap armed and the executive wing openly tightening its grip, the quiet employee stands at the razor's edge of discovery. One wrong move could expose him. One right move could bring the entire house of cards crashing down. Virexon Corp is no longer simply unstable. It is primed for detonation. Virexon Corp has descended into a state of controlled panic as CEO Alastair Renix initiates the most aggressive internal crackdown the company has seen in over a decade. Following a failed attempt to breach one of the encrypted directories tied to analyst Evan Calder's digital trap, the executive suite has launched a sweeping purge aimed at rooting out what they now refer to privately as the internal threat. Employees arriving early Monday morning were met with immediate changes. Tightened badge checkpoints, mandatory workstation audits, and a sudden lockdown of shared digital repositories. Long-trusted tools and systems were offline without explanation, leaving teams scrambling to complete routine tasks under mounting pressure. The message was unmistakable. Leadership is preparing for battle. Insiders report that the CEO held a confidential midnight briefing with a select group of loyal executives, during which he demanded an exhaustive investigation into unauthorized data movement. One attendee described the atmosphere as a declaration of internal war, with Renix allegedly instructing his team to neutralize the breach before it spreads. No names were mentioned, but whispers in the hallways indicate the CEO believes the investigator is hiding somewhere in the lower ranks. As surveillance intensifies, multiple employees have been abruptly reassigned or sent home under the guise of departmental restructuring. Several high-level assistants were questioned for hours about access logs they had no authority to control. HR representatives, once approachable, now conduct conversations behind closed doors with clipped tones and nervous expressions. Despite this mounting pressure, Calder continues to maneuver undetected. Using his low-profile status, he now operates with a level of precision bordering on surgical. He has begun routing his server activity through outdated training directories and obsolete security modules. Digital blind spots the executive IT team rarely scans. These hidden channels allow him to monitor the CEO's escalating actions in real time. The situation became more dramatic when an internal memo, meant for executive eyes only, was accidentally routed to a non-executive distribution list. The memo referenced pending disciplinary measures for any staff member found to be withholding information. Though quickly retracted, the damage was done. Fear spread instantly, and speculation erupted across the office floors. Meanwhile, Calder's investigation reveals an even darker twist. Among the shadow files, he discovers communication logs showing direct coordination between the CEO and a trusted legal advisor to suppress previous whistleblower attempts. One message included a chilling line: Clause 7 must never be activated. This confirmation not only validates the threat but signals that the CEO will stop at nothing to protect his network. As the hours pass, tension grows palpable. The executive IT team now performs live scans of workstations while employees are still seated, a move that many describe as humiliating and invasive. Several managers report feeling targeted without cause, but none dare voice their concerns publicly. The entire corporation feels poised on the edge of something historic and dangerous. Despite the mounting risk, Calder presses forward. He refines the fail-safe triggers behind his digital trap and adds new redundancies designed to activate even if he is forcibly logged out or escorted from the building. His focus is absolute, his determination unwavering, and his proximity to uncovering the full scope of the CEO's wrongdoing is tightening by the minute. Virexon Corp is no longer just unstable. It is fracturing. The intensifying corporate siege within Virexon Corp reached a breaking point last night when analyst Evan Calder, the once invisible employee now operating behind layers of secrecy, finally initiated the company's dormant whistleblower mechanism, Clause 7. The activation, executed at precisely 2:14 a.m., has triggered a chain reaction shaking the corporation's highest offices. Sources close to the situation reveal that Calder prepared the submission with near-military precision. Over several days, he compiled a comprehensive evidence packet containing forged promotion timelines, unauthorized policy edits, financial irregularities, access logs, message chains, and the buried draft amendment designed to eliminate Clause 7 entirely. The packet was then encrypted, time-stamped, and routed through the official Clause 7 channel, forcing immediate escalation beyond all executive control. Within minutes of the activation, automated notifications were dispatched to every board member, external auditors, and the company's Legal Oversight Committee. The system, untouched for nearly a decade, processed the alert exactly as written, with total secrecy, full authority, and mandatory emergency protocol. The CEO, for the first time since the crisis began, was legally removed from the information loop. The impact on the executive suite was immediate and explosive. Early reports indicate that at 2:31 a.m., lights in the top floors flicked on as startled board directors began arriving on site, some still in evening attire. Security personnel were instructed to grant them unrestricted access, bypassing all executive-level clearance. Witnesses described the scene as unprecedented and borderline cinematic. Meanwhile, CEO Alastair Renix reportedly did not learn of the activation until after 3 a.m., when he attempted to access several restricted files and was met with a denial prompt bearing the unmistakable message, "In system lock, Clause 7 review in progress." According to a source inside the executive wing, Renix reacted with visible panic, immediately placing a series of urgent calls that went unanswered. As the board convened, Calder monitored the system from an isolated workstation on a lower floor. He watched as his evidentiary files were duplicated, authenticated, and placed into official review queues. Every trigger he had built into his digital trap confirmed perfect execution. Every safeguard functioned exactly as designed. The moment he had prepared for, at immense personal risk, had arrived. What unfolded next ignited shockwaves throughout the corporation. Board members initiated a full lockdown on executive privileges, freezing access to internal funds, communication systems, and personnel records. Several senior executives attempted to override the restrictions but were met with immediate system alerts indicating potential obstruction of a whistleblower investigation, an action that carries severe penalties. Employees arriving for early shifts were greeted by an unusual and alarming sight. Board members escorted by outside legal observers moving in and out of secure rooms. No announcements were made, but the entire building felt the shift. A quiet whisper swept through the hallways. Clause 7 has been activated. Inside the board chamber, the evidence spoke for itself. The timestamps, forged signatures, unauthorized edits, hidden financial transfers, and suppression attempts formed an unmistakable pattern of coordinated nepotism and misconduct. One board director reportedly remarked, "This is not negligence. This is deliberate orchestration." As dawn broke, Calder finally stepped away from his workstation, exhausted but composed. Though no one yet knew his identity, his actions had set in motion the most significant internal investigation in Virexon's history. The corporation now stands on the edge of a full-scale reckoning, one that will determine not only the fate of the CEO but the future of the company itself. Clause 7 has awakened after 10 silent years, and Virexon Corp will never be the same again. Virexon Corp awoke this morning to a scene no one inside its polished glass towers could have imagined just days earlier. Following the midnight activation of Clause 7 and an emergency session of the board, the once untouchable CEO Alistair Renix now stands isolated, stripped of all access privileges, and facing the most severe internal investigation in the company's history. Chaos erupted in the upper floors shortly before sunrise when board-appointed investigators confronted the CEO in his private suite. According to multiple witnesses, Renix reacted with disbelief and fury, repeatedly demanding to know who triggered the whistleblower protocol. His security team was instructed to escort him out of restricted areas. A humiliating reversal for a man who once controlled every corner of the corporation. Within an hour, Virexon's legal department issued an internal freeze order, preventing the destruction or alteration of any files created within the last 5 years. This unprecedented action shut down several executive-level servers and halted all departmental operations that relied on top-tier approval. Entire divisions found themselves unable to function as investigators seized control of key systems. On the board level, shock turned to anger as directors reviewed the evidence compiled in Calder's Clause 7 packet. Several members reportedly confronted each other over why such immense corruption had gone unnoticed for so long. Internal sources say that the board's chairwoman described the findings as a structural failure of oversight that placed the entire corporation and its shareholders at enormous risk. The fallout spread rapidly. Virexon's communications team attempted to prepare a statement, only to discover that the board had already enlisted outside crisis managers to oversee all public messaging. The CEO's office, once a hub of power, was placed under full lockdown. Assistants were barred from removing documents, devices, or even personal belongings without legal supervision. Down in the lower floors, employees watched the unfolding spectacle with a mixture of fear and awe. Rumors spread like wildfire. Some believed the investigator was already known, others whispered about calculated retribution, while a small few claimed to have seen a quiet analyst leaving the building before dawn, calm, composed and unnoticed, just as always. Meanwhile, Calder remained hidden, observing as his evidence reshaped the corporate hierarchy from the shadows. He knew the process had only begun. The Clause 7 Review Board, now fully activated, must conduct a 72-hour deep investigation with full authority to suspend executives, seize systems, and recommend legal action. Even Renix, despite his power, could no longer interfere. By mid-morning, the board delivered its first decisive blow: an emergency suspension of the CEO pending investigation. Gasps were heard across 3 floors when the announcement appeared on every employee's screen. Renix, visibly shaken, was escorted out of the executive wing through a service corridor to avoid attention. The symbolic image of his departure spread quickly through the building. Yet the most dramatic moment came just before noon, when investigators revealed another layer of Calder's findings to the board. Evidence indicating that certain senior executives collaborated with the CEO to suppress dissent and silence previous internal complaints. This revelation widened the scope of the crisis, turning an inquiry into a full-scale corporate purge. The explosion of Chapter 8 still echoed through the city as the investigation widened, but beneath the chaos, a new storm was quietly forming. Elijah, now exposed and hunted by Mercer, realized he was no longer just fighting for redemption. He was fighting to stay alive. The board's silence had grown heavier, and every unanswered call felt like another nail being hammered into his fate. Something much bigger was moving in the shadows, and he could feel it closing in. Meanwhile, Mercer intensified his own operation. Using the media frenzy as cover, he ordered a series of covert data wipes across the company's global servers. He needed every trace of his financial crimes erased before investigators reached the central archives. His confidence, however, was cracking. The outburst in his office and the panic in his commands revealed a man who knew his time was running out. Elijah had only one advantage left: the encrypted drive he stole before his firing. That drive, containing the forbidden Project Helios files, was the last thread tying Mercer to the scandal. But decrypting it required someone he could trust, and trust was something he had run out of long ago. Still, desperation pushed him to reach out to an unlikely ally. Maya, a former cybersecurity engineer who disappeared after clashing with Mercer 2 years earlier. When Elijah finally found Maya in a dim co-working basement, she stared at him with a mix of suspicion and disbelief. She had heard the news. Everyone had. Elijah was now a public villain, blamed for a scandal he didn't commit. But as soon as he mentioned Helios, her expression changed. That name alone was enough to chill the room. She agreed to help, but she warned him, Digging into Helios again could cost them both their lives. Back at headquarters, Mercer sensed the walls closing in from every direction. Government auditors were demanding access to confidential systems. Shareholders were panicking, and whispers about his involvement were beginning to leak. His fury turned to paranoia. He installed surveillance on upper-floor boardrooms, monitored employees' calls, and even hired private contractors to track anyone who might betray him. The empire he built was turning into his personal prison. As Maya worked through the layers of encryption, Elijah watched the digital countdown on her screen. Every decrypted section felt like peeling back another layer of Mercer's lies. But with each discovery, Maya's expression grew darker. Helios wasn't just financial fraud, it was a systematic manipulation of international energy markets, with potential links to offshore accounts, shell companies, and political bribes. If released, it could ignite a global scandal. Their breakthrough didn't go unnoticed. One of Mercer's contractors intercepted unusual data traffic coming from Maya's old access ports. Within minutes, Mercer's men were mobilized. Elijah and Maya had no idea the silent alarm had been triggered. They were racing the clock, unaware that the hunters were already on their trail. Suddenly, the power in the basement flickered. Maya froze. Elijah's instincts screamed danger. The room dimmed, and a cold silence replaced the hum of servers. Before they could react, Maya's monitor flashed a red warning. Unauthorized intrusion detected. Someone had found them. They weren't just tracking Helios, they were tracking them. Elijah grabbed the drive while Maya pulled the cables, trying to salvage what they could. Footsteps echoed from the stairwell above. Slow, deliberate, and unmistakably hostile. With panic rising, they escaped through the emergency exit at the back, slipping into the dark alley just as the door burst open behind them. Mercer's enforcers were seconds too late, but now they knew Elijah had discovered something he was never meant to see. As they disappeared into the back streets, Elijah realized the truth. Chapter 8 was only the beginning. The explosion, the accusations, the chaos, it was all part of a much larger war. And now, with the Helios drive half decrypted and Mercer's forces tightening their trap, Elijah was no longer running from scandal. He was running from a man willing to destroy entire nations to protect his empire. The night swallowed Elijah and Maya as they sprinted through the maze of alleys, every shadow looking like Mercer's men waiting to strike. The city's neon lights blinked overhead, reflecting the chaos boiling beneath its polished corporate skyline. Elijah's breath burned in his lungs, but he didn't dare slow down. They had escaped, for now, but Mercer would not let this failure go unpunished. The man had too much to lose, and Elijah had just become the biggest threat to his empire. Maya led them into an abandoned factory on the outskirts of the city, a place she once used as a secret testing ground for Helios before she was pushed out. Dust covered the old equipment, and spiderwebs clung to the corners like memories long forgotten. "We'll be safe here for a moment," she whispered, but even she didn't sound convinced. Elijah looked around, feeling the weight of the Helios drive in his hand. Every secret, every crime, every manipulation Mercer had orchestrated, it was all inside this small metal casing. And now, it was their only shield. As Maya reconnected her portable rig, Elijah kept watch near the shattered windows. The silence outside felt suffocating. The streets were too quiet. It was the kind of silence that preceded danger. His mind raced back to the boardroom where this nightmare started. His firing, the accusations, the humiliation. He once thought losing his job was the worst betrayal he'd face. But now he understood, that was just the first cut in a much deeper wound. Inside the factory, Maya finally broke the silence. "Elijah, you need to see this." Her voice trembled, and for someone as composed as she was, fear itself became a warning. Elijah rushed to her side and stared at the decrypted files. The revelations were staggering. Helios wasn't simply financial corruption. It was a covert global operation tied to energy shortages, manipulated crises, and false data releases designed to trigger panic and profit. Mercer had been playing with economies the way a puppeteer manipulates strings. But the most shocking piece came next, a classified document showing Elijah's name. It detailed his psychological profile, vulnerabilities, and ways he could be framed without suspicion. His firing hadn't been a decision. It was a design, prepared long before he ever stepped into the CFO role. Mercer had chosen him as the perfect scapegoat, someone whose downfall could distract the world from the truth behind Helios. Elijah felt his blood run cold. His entire career, reputation, and life had been manipulated like a controlled collapse. Before he could process the betrayal, Maya's laptop beeped sharply. A location trace. Someone was triangulating their signal. Fast. She slammed the device shut, but the damage was done. We have to move. They found us again. Her voice sharpened as adrenaline surged. Elijah grabbed the equipment while Maya killed the power. They ran toward the back exit, but headlights suddenly pierced through the broken windows. Vehicles were surrounding the building. Mercer's men had arrived, moving with precise coordination. Their footsteps echoed on the concrete outside, forming a tightening circle. Elijah and Maya ducked behind an old generator, hearts pounding. The tunnel stretched endlessly before Elijah and Maya, lit only by the faint glow of Maya's modified wrist light. Every step echoed like a countdown they couldn't see but could almost feel pressing against their backs. They had escaped Mercer's elite operatives by inches, but the danger had only multiplied. He won't stop now, Maya whispered, her voice bouncing off the damp walls. He'll burn half the city to find us. Elijah didn't argue. Mercer had already crossed every moral boundary. Hunting them was simply the next step in protecting his empire. After nearly an hour of navigating the labyrinth beneath the city, they reached a rusted maintenance hatch leading into the forgotten substructure of an old telecom hub. The air inside buzzed faintly with dormant energy. Perfect cover for hiding. Maya set up her portable rig again, this time using the hub's outdated internal wiring to mask their digital footprint. Elijah stood guard at the entrance, scanning the darkness like a man expecting the shadows themselves to move. He had never imagined his life would descend into this, but survival had redefined his expectations long ago. A sudden beep from Maya's rig broke the heavy silence. The Helios drive is responding to something, she murmured, eyes narrowing. Elijah moved to her side as lines of code flickered across the screen. The drive wasn't just a passive storage device. It was connected to a dormant network Mercer had shut down years ago. As it activated, new encrypted folders surfaced, folders neither Maya nor Elijah had known existed. Their contents were even more explosive. Hidden directives, offshore accounts, and a private communication channel linking Mercer to foreign power brokers. But one file overshadowed the rest, a video feed. It showed Mercer in a private boardroom, speaking to someone off-screen. His tone was cold, calculated, and devoid of remorse. If they leak any part of Helios, we initiate Protocol Ashfall. Clean the operation. Clean the witnesses. Elijah felt the ground shift under him. Mercer wasn't just covering up corruption. He was preparing a total wipeout strategy designed to silence every possible threat, including high-ranking officials who unknowingly played roles in Helios's global influence model. Maya replayed the audio, isolating a faint voice in the background. When she amplified it, Elijah froze. It was Avery Lennox, the interim CFO who replaced him after the scandal. Only now did Elijah realize the horrifying truth. Avery wasn't simply a pawn. He was Mercer's willing accomplice. Their conversations were detailed, rehearsed, and soaked in betrayal. Mercer had groomed Avery for years, molding him into the perfect co-conspirator while framing Elijah as the disposable fall guy. Before they could process the new revelations, a flashing red icon appeared on Maya's interface. Incoming trace. Someone was trying to force their way into the system, bypassing firewalls and encryption protocols with surgical precision. He's found the network, Maya snapped, pulling cables free as sparks shot from the overloaded wiring. Elijah grabbed the equipment, and they sprinted deeper into the telecom hub as the lights flickered violently behind them. They could hear the distant thud of boots above. Mercer's operatives had located the tunnel access. They barricaded themselves inside a small server chamber, breathing hard. The room smelled of metal and dust, the servers humming like a fading heartbeat. Elijah stared at the Helios drive in his hand. We have enough proof to bring the entire corporation down, he said, but we can't release any of it while he's tracking us. Maya nodded. We need a secure uplink. Something off the grid. Something he can't touch. She paused. And there's only one place left. Elijah didn't like the look in her eyes, but he trusted her. Without hesitation, they slipped through a side exit and followed a narrow ventilation shaft leading back toward the surface. Behind them, the chamber door burst open, and shouts echoed through the hub. Mercer's men were seconds behind. The chase resumed, louder, more vicious, and with no room for error. Elijah's pulse hammered like a war drum as adrenaline carried them forward. As they climbed the final ladder, the night sky greeted them once more. But this time, it felt different. Colder. Sharper. The city lights seemed to watch them, as if aware of the battle unfolding in its shadows. Maya pointed toward a distant skyline, a broadcast facility atop the oldest tower in the district. If we reach that station, she said, we can send the truth everywhere. Mercer can't shut down analog broadcast. Elijah looked at the glowing tower, then at the Helios drive, feeling the weight of destiny pressing against his chest. They were exhausted, hunted, and far outnumbered, but they finally had a way to expose everything. And Mercer would know exactly what they were about to do. The city's winds howled violently as Elijah and Maya emerged onto the surface, their clothes still coated in dust and sweat from the underground chase. The broadcast tower rose in the distance like an iron giant, its red aviation lights blinking rhythmically in the night sky. Every blink felt like a challenge, an announcement that the final stage of their battle had begun. Elijah tightened his grip on the Helios drive. Reaching that tower would mean survival, exposure, and justice. Failing would mean disappearing into the same silence Mercer used to bury his enemies. As they crossed the deserted industrial district, Maya kept checking her scanner. We bought maybe 10 minutes before they catch up, she muttered. He deployed his top pursuit units. This time they're not coming to capture. Elijah felt the warning settle in his bones, but fear no longer dictated his actions. The betrayal, the framing, the chase, it had reforged him into someone stronger, sharper. Someone Mercer never expected. They climbed a service ladder that led to a narrow catwalk overlooking a rail yard. Freight trains crawled beneath them like steel serpents, carrying shipments under Mercer's subsidiaries. Elijah paused. These shipments, they're tagged with the same codes from the Helios database. Maya's eyes widened. Helios wasn't just a financial conspiracy. It funneled physical assets too. The scandal was bigger, deeper, more dangerous than they imagined. But the moment of realization ended abruptly when a piercing spotlight swept across the catwalk. A drone. Then another. And another. Mercer had activated his aerial units. The drones hovered like metallic vultures, scanning for movement. Elijah and Maya ducked behind a rusted storage container as a beam of blue light cut through the darkness. He's deploying autonomous trackers, Maya whispered. They don't negotiate. They eliminate. They sprinted across the catwalk just as the drones unleashed a barrage of stun pulses, crackling violently against the steel floor. Elijah felt heat brush past his leg, nearly knocking him off balance. They dove into a maintenance corridor, slamming the door shut as electricity sparked on the other side. The blasts echoed like thunder in a metal tunnel. Maya jammed a steel rod through the door handle. That will hold them for maybe a minute. Inside the corridor, the walls vibrated with activity. They could hear vehicles closing in from the streets below, engines revving with predatory intent. Elijah glanced through a vent grate and saw black SUVs surrounding the district. Mercer wasn't leaving any escape path by chance. He was locking down the city block by block. Elijah's jaw tightened. Mercer wasn't just trying to stop them. He was trying to erase any evidence they existed at all. They pushed forward until the corridor led to a utility stairwell at the base of the broadcast tower. The structure loomed overhead, disappearing into the fog. Maya tapped her wrist device, projecting the tower's internal map. Top floor. Analog broadcast room. Once we plug in the drive, the truth goes live everywhere. News stations, emergency networks, even personal receivers. Mercer can't block analog signals. Elijah nodded. It was simple in theory, lethal in execution. As they climbed the first set of stairs, a loud crash echoed from behind them. The drones had breached the corridor. The stairwell lights flickered as shadows moved rapidly below. Elijah and Maya raced upward, 2 steps at a time, hearing the relentless buzz of drone rotors closing in. Their footsteps mixed with the cold metal clangs of the tower, creating a chaotic rhythm that pushed them faster. Halfway up, Maya stumbled. Elijah caught her before she fell, but the hesitation cost them precious seconds. A drone burst through the stairwell door, its laser sight locking onto them with chilling precision. Elijah didn't think. He grabbed a loose pipe from the railing and swung it with full force. Sparks flew as the pipe struck the drone's optic core, sending it crashing down the stairs. But the victory bought only seconds. More drones swarmed in. They made it to the final landing just as the stairwell erupted in white-blue sparks. Elijah shoved the door open, dragging Maya into the wind-battered rooftop platform. The broadcast antenna towered above them, humming with electricity. This was it, the final climb, the final risk, the final chance to expose Mercer. Elijah looked at the Helios drive, then at the glowing tower. "No turning back," he said quietly. Maya nodded, her voice barely a whisper over the wind. "Let's end this."